Wat is er nu weer? Looks like I'm back. Good evening. Why isn't my camera back? Okay, I am back. There's always something. I think last time it went okay, and now it suddenly kicked out my camera again. No idea why. But I'm back. Glove farts. Right, so I started the rider, and he also has a bit of leather work. So while the paint is still moist on my palette, let's tackle that right away. So I wonder how much I can reach while I have him on his mount. Maybe just paint him like this, at least the deepest parts, and probably when I'm at his cape, I can put him on his mount and paint from there. Okay, so I was thinking for his cape to be about the same colors as the beast, as he will be positioned right in between. So maybe from red to purple could be cool. And I was thinking to make his mask a yellow shade so it pops from underneath this purple and you will be drawn to his face. I mean, there's not much to see, but a face is important. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this part in the last stream. And I really like this one. So yeah, today I'm going to work on his rider and make up the colors as I go. like I always do. So for his pants, I'm not quite sure. The original idea was something dark, so a black outfit or something, but it would be a bit weird to paint him black now the beast is so colorful. So maybe go for a brown. Something a bit less dark, but still not as colorful as the beast, because I don't want him to disappear into all the colors that are already there. So yeah, let's do that. Maybe finish the letter first. Just a quick highlights. And on the other side, I will have to add a bit of putty, some green stuff or something, because it broke off. Or was it this side? I don't know, but I have to add a piece of rain back when he's glued in place. Because it's a bit difficult to glue something in between if I still have to get him off. The rider and the beast. So let's grab a brown, maybe a different shade. Should be different enough. I mean, I'm going to mix it with purple and yellow anyway, so. Purple, bit of black, bit of that other brown. And have myself a shadow color. And I'm putting a bit more shadow as the end result will have, because it will make it easier to make transitions if there is a color to overlap. I think I'm going to keep his outfits a bit more simple. So with the brown shades, and then his cape will be the most colorful. Well, and of course his mask. Because I think if I will add too many colors, it will be the same as the beast, very yelling, very asking for attention. Not something I want. Not this time. Very difficult to see everything. And my brush is looking absolutely terrible. It's an old brush. I don't know why I'm painting with this brush so much suddenly, but I don't feel like grabbing another one. Bit more shadow where his weapon is. I think that can be a bit darker. Something like that. And then I will mix the highlight color, so that same brown with a bit of very light yellow. And I'm going from the shadow color to the highlight color. So I'm not going for a base, then shadow and highlight. I just paint the shadow color and the highlight color and then make the blends in between. Whoops. Looks like it would be a good skin color. Keep that in mind. So I have the shadow color and the highlight color on now, and it's time to make the transition. So I am using that original brown as the transition color. Just trying to follow the shapes of the fabric. So if there is a shadowy place, I will add more to that to keep the highlight on top. And what you do with this color, it's the in-between color. So it's the shadow color of the highlight, but it's the highlight color of the shadow. It sounds a bit difficult, but it's not. See here, if you can see that. This is the deepest part, so you paint the deep part, which is the shadow of the highlight. But then you have some raised areas on the shadowy parts, and you paint that with the same color, so you get a nice transition with the same color. Let's see if I can zoom that in. That looks like a very easy and quick way of highlighting, right? Like here, I added a bit of shadow into the highlight to get that transition more natural. Sometimes it's easier to add a bit too much paint and then wipe it off. So here I go into the shadow. And then on the shadow part, you go for the highlights. And this part I'm just going to keep dark mostly because it will be hidden by his mount anyway. So just the exaggerated raised parts will get a bit of highlight, but that's about it. is quite tricky to hold him in place in front of the camera, but I never work with those, how do you call those things? The holders for the miniatures. I always just hold them in my hands and hope for the best. So same for the arm again. Just make that transition and just keep the paints thin. That always helps with a smoother transition. Apparently I forgot a piece right here. Just a quick and dirty highlight there because you will barely see it. That part you can see though. I missed an entire piece in between his leg and torso. Oops. And maybe it's time for a different brush. It's only getting worse. Let's see. Where do I have my size 2? Got it. Missed some shadow here. There. So when you have done this step of making the transition between those two colors, I usually go for a second highlight and a second shadow, just to make it pop a bit more. So for the second shadow, just excuse me, just add a bit more black to the previously made mix. So that's the brown, some purple, some black, and then a bit more black. And you keep it nice and thin. And this you will only use in the deepest parts. Like there. Just where the very harsh lines are at. I also often use it for the part in between two parts, so to say. So if it's a shirt and some pants, I will just add a darker stripe in between, just so it's clear it's two different parts. Just like here in between his sleeve and the cape. And then add a bit of a darker shadow underneath his arm. Because I think it needed that. And then the part that is painted as a shadow, you can use that second shadow to give your shadow a shadow. I mean, this really makes it more three-dimensional instead of a flat piece of fabric. Like, I mean, that looks quite good already, and I still have to add the second shadow and second highlight to that. So let's go. Maybe thin it down a bit more. That's better. Only going to add them to the deepest parts, like I said before. And here you have the part where his pants and boots meet. So I'm going to add a thin line and make sure it looks like two different pieces of his outfit. Thank you. With his fingers as well, I'm going for a deep shadow. So especially when the details aren't that sharp, I need a strong contrast. So I usually make them a bit darker as I normally would. And it's sometimes easier to just paint them dark as a whole and then add some very thin highlights to them as soon as it's dry, of course. there. I'm probably going to drop him today. One of those days. Let me see. So here is a strong shadow because of his weapon. Missed some small parts here and there. Don't know how I managed to do that, but I'm going to fix them as soon as I see them. There as well. Just go away. Right. So with the second shadow done, I can now go to the second highlight. And just adds a bit more of that light yellow. Just a bit thinner. Now I'm going to focus on the raised parts like these. And these sharpest highlights are usually where the highlights and shadow meet. So right in between. It's also where a gloss would have its brightest parts. So it's the place of extremes. So the brightest highlights and the darkest shadow very close to each other. Almost drops him again. And this brightest highlight doesn't need to be a straight line. It can be just little dots. It all depends on the structure you want. And of course, how many details there are to work with. That looks pretty good, right? White background. In contrast to this part. This looks very flat. And here, just with one more highlight. Looks a bit better, if you ask me. So same for his sleeves here. There's just a very small part peeking out from under his cape. So I'm just going to focus the highlights on the middle of it, because this is the part that sticks out from underneath his cloak the most. And then for his little fingers, adding a bit more as I usually would, because there is not much to work with here, detail-wise. But you want it to read as fingers, and not just a hand blob. Paint this dry. You can always come back in with another shadow or another highlight. Just work as long on it as you want to get that transition as smooth as possible. I mean, sometimes I'm not even going for as smooth as possible, but if it reads like a shadow and highlight, often that's good enough, if you ask me. It all depends on what you want and how far you're willing to go for details. For me, it really depends on the project. Sometimes I'm just enjoying tossing around some colors, practicing my shadow and highlight placement. And in cases like that, I'm not focusing on getting the best as possible transitions. I just want to read it as a good placement, and then I'm happy. Let's see, a bit more here. The paint is drying on my brush and I'm using that at the moment for a quick dry brush. Let's see, is this good enough? I mean, I'd say so. And in the dark areas, I've only highlighted with that in-between color. So there is some depth to it, but not too much. I do not like this part of his hand though. It looks a bit too light, so I'm going to add a bit of that middle color to it. Create a bit more shadow. And tone this down just a bit. That's better. It looked like it was a skin hand instead of a glove hand. Okay, so first I'm going to paint his mask. I think it's easier to go for the yellow part first. So he gets a yellow mask and then a, what was it? Red to purple cape. So I'm going to mix some colors. Yellow, yellow, yellow. Maybe go for a bit more orange, as I will give it some highlights eventually. So it will become brighter. And maybe if I start with this one, it will become too comic-y. Yeah, I'm just going for this one because I will mix it with a light yellow anyway for the highlights. So I'm gonna create a shadow color by adding some black and some purple. So this is the shadow color. There's not that much space to work with. And then the highlight color, so adding that light yellow to it. And now wait for it to dry. While it dries, I'm trying to think of where to place the highlights and the shadows. I mean, I'm just painting this as we go. With larger pieces, I like to think about everything up front and then start painting. But with these live streams, I'm forcing myself to just think what I want and do it. Just no long periods of thinking, just go. Okay, so that middle color will be the highlight for the dark sides. And the shadow for the light side. Can you please focus? Thank you. Second shadow, adding a bit more black and tiny bit more purple to it. Thin it down just a bit more. That is scary. It's a very thin part for his eyes. Just painted a bit excessively, but I will fix that with the highlights. So a bit more light yellow to the previous mix. At this point, I'm almost completely at the light yellow color itself. And then go for the edge highlights. Mhm. Going to add a very, very thin layer of black. Just because it's a very deep part, I want that shadow to be very clear. Try to darken his eyepiece. Let's just do it. Okay. Good. Not perfect, but I can fix it. I mean, that works, right? Phew. I figured it would be easier to paint the yellow a bit overlapping and then add the red and purple cape to it. Because if I would have to cover a red color, I would have to paint it probably brown first, and then start layering on the yellow. So the other way around, like I'm doing right now, probably the smartest thing. It is going to get some attention. Oh yeah. Ooh, I like that. So onto his cape. Red, red, reds. It was this red and this purple. These colors. And I'm going to paint them the same as I did with his flappy hat things. I'm going to paint the red and purple on first, make the transition, and then add the shadows and highlights to both of them. I think that works easier when you also have to keep transitions in between colors in mind, so as not to confuse my brain too much. Just focus on the red to purple first and then add all the effects. And I can get my messy brush again. Right. Red first, then purple. This is going to look a bit weird at first. Red Riding Hood, here we go. This is absolutely awful. It looks like Santa now. Weird kind of Santa, but the red and white, it's yeah, it's something. Yeah, ho ho ho, like stop, stop, stop. I think I'm going for a bit of a wavy transition. That's red. Onto the purple. Maybe a bit here as well. This part does not have to be very pretty. As long as the colors are covering, that's all I want in this stage. So while that dries, I'm going to paint the inside. And I'm going to go for the shadow colors, of course. So the red parts, I will add a bit of black and a bit of purple. And for the purple, the same, only this time it's just purple and black. And when this is all dry, I will focus on the transitions. And like this part will get more light here in the end. So of course I'm going to paint a normal purple there. Going for a bit of a wet blend here. Still looks a bit weird. And with a bit, I mean very. That purple definitely needs a second layer. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the same way as how I've done this. This worked out great. So this will too. So this is still drying, but to get the transition in between these, I will mix some of that red and some of that purple. And then cover the in-between parts. And that is the first step. Almost grabbed the wrong color there. Almost dipped it in black. Whoops. And when this part is dry, I will add a bit more red to it and then go in between here. And on this side, add a bit more purple to it and make the transition there. So you get these small steps of the transitions. And that is one way of getting a smooth transition. And I keep moving that brush back and forward so I don't get that harsh line in between. And sometimes you need to go for a couple of layers depending on how well it covers the first attempt. But that is fine because I have plenty of paints. That looks pretty good already. It's still drying, so it's a bit difficult to see. but it's no harsh lines anymore. The inside definitely needs some more work. Then I can now add shadows to these deeper parts and highlights where they should go. Especially from this angle, you can really see these parts will get shadows and these parts here right on the edges will get highlights. So for the red, I'm going to add a light yellow. So from the highlight, I will go back to just the red, a thinned down version, and then make the blends more smooth in between those colors. Whoops. And then on to the second highlight. So a bit more light yellow to it. And then just grab the harshest lines. I mean, like here, it's a very, very sharp edge. That's the word I was looking for. very glossy. And then go for a shadow color. So that same red with a bit of purple and a bit of black. Keep that nice and thin. And add the shadows. And if you need to, just go back in with some of the reds or a highlight color or whichever color you need to touch up. In my case, I need a bit more red. And adding a bit more highlights. These lines are so very fine. You touch up one thing, you mess up another. At least I do. I think that red part is done. It really pops. So very pleased with that. So now it's on to the purple. Let's start with highlights again. So that same purple with a bit of light yellow. Let me see. Where to place the highlights? Sometimes it's tricky to find the correct spot for the highlights. Oh, come on. Sorry about that. And then, of course, smoothen that out first by going back in with the purple. Or did I take these? Almost the same. Looks like I went a bit brighter with the highlights for the rider. But that's okay. So for the purple, of course, also the shadow color, which was purple and a bit of black. Completely getting into the zone there. Going for one brighter highlight for the purple, just for the edge. I think I'm going to leave it at this. And let's see if I can fit him in between here without scratching everything. Yeah, that's scary. Come on, you can do it. Get in there. Come. Ah, boo. I scratched his cloak. Right there on his shoulder. Let me fix that as good as possible. I mean, that looks cool. I really like his face plate. Really pops, which was the plan. I mean, it's the first thing you look at. The face. Mm. So the rest pretty dark. Highlights there are good. Well, welcome. I do think I need a starker, stronger and darker, starker. I need a starker shadow here on the cape because it's a bit too much of the same. But this highlight here, very, very pleased with that. I mean, it looks like it's a silky fabric, and it is a bit brighter as his head, but of course this is organic and this isn't, so I don't mind that at all. Yeah, I really like that. Very pleased. Also, let me zoom in on that gorgeous face. Very, very pleased. I think it was a good choice to go for a bright yellow face. So I can glue this in place, which is nice. And the other part is where I have to add a bit, as that part broke off when I took him out of the printer. There's still plenty to do on this model, as I have been focusing on one side mostly. And this is for me to enjoy off camera. But this, very, very happy. So yeah, his pants came out good as well. It's simple. I didn't want it to pop as well because it's in front of the saddle. I wanted to focus more on the beast and, well, on his cape, as you can see. And yeah, I think I succeeded. So I can turn this around like 50 times more, but um, I will glue this in place. Oh, I see he needs to go down a bit more. There. Okay, so this is his position. It's still good. His butt was off the saddle without me noticing. So this is the end result of his position on the saddle. Still some tweaks to go here and there. Probably will add a bit more shadow there if I am careful. Don't know if I can do that. But yeah, that's it for tonight. Sorry for tuning in just now. I've been longer. I've been here longer as planned already, which isn't bad, but time to go. So yeah, I will take some pictures of him. Try to get that face pretty in the pictures and show you the results without lamps and stuff in the same frame. Like backgrounds. Ooh. Black background does suit him. Well, thank you for being here. I hope it was interesting to see. I tuned out a bit sometimes because I was so focused on the highlights, but that's a part of streaming, I guess. So yeah, going to take some pictures, post them on Instagram. You can zoom in a bit and maybe a bit less movement of me trying to look at everything at the same time. So thank you for being here tonight. I will be back on Sunday, same time. And in the meantime, you can find me on Instagram and come say hi. So I hope you all have a nice weekend ahead and see you when I see you.